The best and worst games of 2023. These aren't all games that came out in 2023, but games that I played in 2023. And as you can tell, this list is based on my personal enjoyment of these games, so feel free to share yours in the comments below. Now let's begin. Number 15, Suika Game. It's the kind of game you'd expect your aunt to play on her phone. You stack the fruit and try to get a new high score. It was pretty fun to play for like a week until I got a score higher than 3000, and I haven't touched it since. Number 14, Tact OP Symphony. This is a mobile gacha game that I picked up purely because I watched an anime by the same name 2 years ago. It's set in a world where aliens who hate music are attacking Earth, and the only ones who can stop them are these attractive gacha girls whose designs are based off of various classical music. And as silly as it may sound, I did get to learn a bunch about music thanks to this game, although most of it came from these comics they posted on their Twitter page. The game itself definitely had some performance and UI issues when it came out, which is also when I played it, but they've been taking player feedback and have made some pretty good improvements. I'm excited to see what new characters they add next so I can learn even more about classical music. Number 13, the Teal Mask DLC. This was part 1 of the Scarlet and Violet DLCs where we get to visit a brand new region, something that hasn't happened since Heart Gold and Soul Silver. I enjoyed the quick field trip to Kirakami as well as meeting the new rivals, but it definitely felt more like a setup for part 2 than its own contained story. My favorite part of this DLC was getting to hang out with Perrin and catch the new Ursaluna. And while I did enjoy the aesthetics of Kirakami, I really wish they would have also resolved the performance issues so that my game wouldn't lag so much during battles. They made it not so enjoyable to play. Number 12, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC. This might be an old game, but we got the 3 whole waves of DLC added in 2023. They gave us even more playable characters such as Pauline, Not Bowsette, and female Yoshi, but most importantly, my new Mario Kart main, Petey Piranha, whose heavy dump truck I could use to accidentally push my friends out of the way. We also got a couple of cool new courses like DK Summit, Moonview Highway, Koopa Cave, and Daisy Circuit. Can you tell that the only other Mario Kart game I've played was the one on the Wii? Number 11, Consider It 3. This is one of those games that I watched someone else play, but I was backseating, so it counts. It's basically a series of quick events where you have to make a choice, whether it's the considerate one or not, that's up to you. I enjoyed being the chaotic little devil on Cap's shoulder from time to time, suggesting the most inconsiderate option just because it would be kind of funny. Although one thing I did learn from this game is that despite watching years worth of anime, I still don't know what is considered considerate in Japanese culture, at least according to this game. Who would have thought anime is not the same as learning about the place itself? Number 10, The Fungo, Among Us. As a mushroom enjoyer, I was really looking forward to The Fungo, and it got several silly mechanics, like a mushroom that makes everyone change their shape, or a puff shroom that obstructs everyone's view. Not sure if it's more helpful for the crew or the imposter, but it sure is silly to trigger them. The only problem I had with this map is that there wasn't much room to move around in some of the areas. Number 9, Wife Quest? I can explain. You know how Nintendo is typically viewed as a family-friendly console? Well, they have an abnormally large selection of non-family friendly games, and while I'd never stoop so low as to play such disgraceful, degenerate games, this one is an exception. And that's because I have an unhealthy obsession with buying games that have Quest in their name. Car Quest, Picto Quest, Dragon Quest, and unfortunately... And I gotta say, as far as degenerate games go, it sure does a pretty good job of being a fun game. It's got cute clouds in the background, hidden rooms, and various power-ups which I did not buy because I spent all of my money on photos of the shop owner. Playing this game felt like playing Celeste, but instead of all the wholesome self-acceptance and personal growth moments, we just get a bunch of innuendos. Number 8, Spider-Man 2 and 1 and 1.5. Overall, I thought that all 3 of the games were pretty fun to watch and a solid game to play if you have even a mild interest in superheroes. The one thing I didn't appreciate is how much inspiration Spider-Man took from Splatoon. I mean, look at this thing, where he's marking people, that just looks like Thermal Ink. And when he's swinging around on his webs, that's just a Zipcaster special. And they also just outright copied Splashdown? Jokes aside, I thought the story was pretty interesting to watch, and really liked how the 2 Spider-Mans were Spider Bros in the second game. I kinda wish I had a Spider Bro now. Number 7, the Indigo Disc DLC. The second part of the Scarlet and Violet Pilot DLC felt more like a love letter to Unova than anything else. You got kids of gym leaders, remixes of Gen 5 music, and another region to visit? This is the first mainline Pokemon game to have 3 regions in it, and it runs just as smooth as you would expect. I mean, I'm just in a swamp and the frames are like 2. The story for this DLC was actually pretty good, and we got writing on a level I did not expect from Game Freak. It's such a huge step in the right direction, and I really hope they keep it at this level or better for future games, because oh my gosh, seeing how insane Briar is at the climax of the story, and the absolute savage line that Drayden drops, oh man, and they added difficulty? I mean, the base game is pretty hard if you do extremely challenging runs like I do, link for them in the description below, but in my personal run, I had a super easy time. Yet here I was, having to spam max revives just to win a battle in the DLC. There were a whole bunch of new features like an item crafter, the ability to walk around as any of your Pokemon, notable trainers trading you a Pokemon, and some cool room designs, but most of it was locked behind BP, which you gain from doing these tedious side quests. I kinda wish they scaled up a bit more because I'm really sick of taking pictures of a Pokemon, or trying to sneak up on them, or having to catch one of a specific type only to get 20 points. I know it's much less grindy if you play it with friends, but come on, you really think I have friends? Well, I do, but none of them play this game because of all the performance issues, so it doesn't solve my problem. Number 6, Genshin Impact Fontaine. Every year, Genshin likes to drop a whole new nation for us to explore, and in 2023, we got to go to Fontaine, the land of Hydro. Most of the main story was centered around a series of Ace Attorney-style court cases, and while I wasn't too sold on the new Archon, the final act of the story really changed my perspective on Miss Macaroni over here. The writing was so good that she went from an annoying brat to someone who I genuinely care about, and I usually have no attachment to fictional characters like at all. They also managed to make a very enjoyable underwater section of the game, give us the cutest tour guides ever, send us to jail, and also give us a bunch of overpowered NPCs that are actually a challenge to defeat. Overall, I thought that Fontaine was a great addition to the game, but I'm starting to burn out on the grind, especially with how bad the artifact system is. I can kind of see why they had 7 layers of RNG to the system when the game was brand new, and there were only 20 characters to build. But now that it's several years in and we have 76 characters to build, building any of them feels like a drag. I didn't really notice how bad it was because I was using cope artifacts, but this time around I tried to farm the new domain for Navia, and I ended up wasting 20 condensed resin to only get 2 usable artifacts. Kinda killed my excitement for the new character, and makes me wish they fix this in the future. Do we really need 7 layers of RNG? Number 5, Splatoon 3. We've got a whole year worth of updates to last year's multiplayer game of the year, and while some of the more recent updates felt more like a drizzle, others were pretty amazing. I mean, we got 2 new boss salmonids, a bunch of new and returning maps, as well as extra work aka Groundhog Day but Salmon Run. They also added challenge mode where the devs can try out some fun and wacky things like modified Rainmaker, really high moon jumps, or giving you a random weapon. But for some reason they decided to make it playable for only 2 hours at a time, and only gave us 3 time slots, none of which are very convenient. Overall, there's a ton of new stuff, especially if this is your first Splatoon game, but for veterans like myself, most of it felt lackluster, since the new Splatoon 3 only events are so time-gated and sparse. Not to say that the game itself is bad, it just could have done a better job of giving us more of the new stuff. Either way, it's still a good game that I come back to very often, so it's pretty high on the list, and I'm very excited to see what they do for the Side Order DLC coming later in 2024. Number 4, Fire Emblem Engage. As a way to celebrate how far Fire Emblem has come as a series, Engage added all of their past heroes as emblem rings, which could be worn to power up your characters and give them special abilities during battles. As far as RPGs go, this mechanic allowed for so many RP options, and I loved every bit of it. The gameplay was good, the difficulty just right, but what I did not enjoy about the game was the overall plot and storytelling. It felt very silly and over the top, to the point where a very sentimental, emotional phrase, "I want to be a good dragon," completely missed the feels and went right for my funny bone instead. I was laughing. From what I understand, many people weren't the biggest fans of the character designs either, but just like with Xenoblade 2, I personally did not mind the more anime VTuber looking ones. If anything, I found several characters whose designs I really enjoyed, like Etie, Penet, and Yunaka. I even made a whole video about that last one, you should totally really go watch it if you want to hear more about the game. Number 3, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Feels like a crime putting this at number 3 instead of number 1, but hear me out. After making one of the most critically acclaimed games on the Switch, the Zelda team had quite the challenge on their hands. How do they make it better? Minecraft. They make it Minecraft. By that I mean they added a whole map below the ground that's basically the Nether, and they did what Minecraft hasn't by also adding the Aether. And of course, you can't forget the crafting part, using a bunch of Zonite materials to construct whatever vehicles or crazy robots you can think of. And even though getting to explore the mainland of Hyrule didn't feel as exhilarating as in Breath of the Wild, I definitely enjoyed my time in Tears of the Kingdom much more. No more Guardians giving me constant anxiety, thank goodness, good riddance, no thank you. Unfortunately, this game does not get to be number 1 because a lot of the main story, like the first bulk of the game, felt like a rehash of Breath of the Wild. We visited the same towns, following very similar plot points as the original game, and it felt like a bit of a drag. Kinda wish they were a bit more innovative in those parts of the game, although most of it was pretty cool and the ending was amazing. Number 2, Honkai Star Rail. Just like Pokemon improved on Scarlet and Violet in the DLC, Hoyo improved Genshin in their brand new Space Odyssey gacha game, Honkai Star Rail. Instead of an open world, we get space hallways. Instead of an action RPG, we get a turn-based RPG. And instead of Paimon, we get March 7th? Kind of, she doesn't talk as much as Paimon. Overall, this game felt like a much more polished version of Genshin. They got more streamlined dailies, shorter dialogue, auto battles to speed up the daily grind. Also, adding friends is actually useful because you can borrow their characters for battles. That way, you don't feel as bad if you skipped pulling on a certain character. And they also have good endgame content, the simulated universe, with its whole roguelike section that makes me wish I pulled for more imaginary units. Unfortunately, they also have that super layered artifact system, although it is a bit better in this game because you have a way to skip 3 layers of RNG. It's only once in a while, it's hard to get the resource for it, but at least it's there. My main reason for not putting this as my top game of 2023 is because the one thing this game lacks is good character development. Sure, there were several really great moments, like that boss battle with Cocolia. Oh my gosh, that was the best boss battle I've had in like a decade. But a lot of the story beats feel very hollow or rushed. I'm looking at you, Lofu. And I'm sorry, I'm probably gonna mispronounce character names, but the 2 new 4 stars, Hanya and Jue, are a primary example. They have this supposed backstory that you can kind of piece together from their character lines. And Jue talks about how she only gets a limited time to spend with her sister if she hunts down enough criminals. But overall, we get a whole lot of telling and a whole lot of showing. And it's the same situation for most of the other characters in this game, including the 5 stars. I really wish they do a better job with the character quest to actually flesh out their personalities and show us who they really are. Make us care. They did this in Genshin, now do it in Star Rail. Make this the perfect game. On the bright side, we do get various references to other media and a lot of silly jokes, which I kind of enjoy. I was not expecting to get rickrolled while trying to read up on the lore of a game, but here we are. And now for number 1, Octopath Traveler 2. Now this is a sequel done right. While Pokemon is busy recreating its entire engine for each new iteration of their games, and Tears of the Kingdom spent several years making a whole in-depth physics system that works the way the players expect the physics to work, but Octopath chose a more simple yet effective route. It took everything from the first game and just made it all better. The story's better, the characters more in-depth, the battle mechanics more battle-y. The music, well, I don't think you could improve upon perfection, but here we are. You play through the game's story with 8 different characters, picking one as your main that cannot leave the party until their story is complete. For me, that character was Pertitio, a man who grew up in a poverty-struck town who simply wants to use his merchant skills to make the world a better place. Some of the other characters definitely had a much darker storyline, but all of them hit pretty hard by their last chapters. And then they had a whole post-game section where everything tied together nicely. Overall, I'm a big Octopath enjoyer since it gave me those nostalgic 90s vibes with its art direction, its simple yet satisfying battle mechanics, tickle my RPG-loving brain, and of course the audio design. I mean, hear me out. You're walking around town and it sounds like this. But then nighttime hits and it gets all peaceful, like... We are about to punch poverty in the face with Pertitio, and anywhere you go, cause he's all hyped up, you hear this play. and at some point you roll into battle and the music is all like,
yeehaw! Catapult, go, go, go!
Let me show you what I've learned, fire. Burn. You're finished.
Axe of the lion heart.
and oh my gosh, it's so satisfying. Octopath 2 was satisfying to play, and that's why it's my personal best game of the year for 2023. Now I assume your favorite game for this year was different, so do comment down below. After all, there's plenty of games I did not get to play, so I'm going to try and pick up some of your recommendations. Either way, thanks for watching, Happy New Year, and I hope to see you all in the next one.